Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Breakdown, and we're heading into week 3 of the fantasy football season. Before I introduce my guests, let's start with a little good news, bad news, right? The good news is Matt Ryan bounced back this week with 4 touchdown passes. The bad news is 2 of them went to the other team. The good news is James Robinson bounced back and led the Jaguars in rushing. The bad news is he didn't go anywhere. The good news is last week we sat here and we told you we were going to do better on our starts and sits. The bad news is, well, there's no bad news because we did so much better on our starts and sits. And the geniuses behind those starts and sits are joining me once again, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Dunton and Chris Fiumano. Dunton, how are you this evening?
I'm doing better than the secondary of the Detroit Lions after last night's second half.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was brutal. Fanduel Fee, how are you doing?
Oh, we're having a little bit of a rough go of it here. Got that kids are sick, so lots of stuff going on at home. But I had the worst fantasy week of my life last week because I think my problem is I don't take my own advice.
Right. I was going to
say, and I really screw myself up in multiple accounts.
Yeah.
Well, let's throw it out there. I mean, I think the world needs to know that Fee
tell him
benched Terry McLaurin. I don't even. Dutton and I were texting on the side. We couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you an explanation for it.
I also have the same one you gave us because that was
I also have Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson, and I just thought that McLaurin didn't have the greatest matchup, and I didn't think that Washington was going to throw it a whole lot. And with Heineke, coming back, so brand new quarterback again. And I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. And it was my flex position really. And I ended up throwing in a running back thinking that maybe I'd get more points or something. And clearly it was the wrong decision. It doesn't matter. I still would have lost my game anyway.
Yeah.
But then I did terribly in FanDuel because I didn't take my own advice and didn't play the players that I told you to play on this podcast. So, I'm going to try and do better this week for myself.
You should listen to yourself.
Probably just tomorrow, just listen to you tonight and you'll be fine.
Right. So rolling back to last week, our locks of the week, once again, we didn't do so hot there. We were so close, guys.
Yeah.
The Rams were 3.5 favorites. We told you the Rams were the lock of the week, and of course they only won by a field goal. The Bengals pushed. I told you I didn't understand why they were getting 3 points, and they got the 3 points. And the Eagles just didn't show up. But so you could look at it 2 ways. Record-wise speaking, I guess I'm technically the best because I'm 0-1-1 because I tied against the spread. But you could also look at Dutton, and both of Dutton's picks are lost on like a last-second garbage half-point cover, right?
It's ridiculous. I am the bad beat king of this podcast.
You're the bad beat king. Well, let's try to do a good win this week. And Dutton, we'll go to you. Who you got as your lock of the week?
All right. So it's going to be shocking to the listeners and fans out there, but I'm picking against touchdown Tommy Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I am picking the Rams +1 beating the Bucs. I just don't know if I trust the Bucs secondary against the Rams offense. And we'll probably talk about that later when we talk fantasy. I think the Bucs are a very, very, very good team. I think this is a huge game for the Rams to show us how good they are, right? Playing the Super Bowl champs.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to a last-second field goal, and this time I hope I'm on the winning side of that, even though my team might lose.
I hear you. So, Fee, how about you?
For what it's worth, I agree with you, Dutton, on the Rams. Which really isn't much because I'm 0-2 on the year anyway. So, but I'm going with Tennessee this week, -5.5 against the Colts. My thinking here is that Wentz has 2 bad ankles, and I don't know if he plays or not. But if he doesn't, I don't know who the Colts are going to throw out there. But whoever it is, it's not going to be great. I think they lost another starting offensive lineman. Tennessee looks fantastic. And the Colts defense doesn't look as good as they were for the last couple of years. So I'm just going to go. I'm going to roll with Tennessee. They've been steamrollers so far, and I'll take them minus the 5.5.
Yeah, I like that pick. I like Dutton's pick too. What I don't like are large spreads, and for me, a large spread is anything over a touchdown. So 7.
There was a lot of them.
7.5 and higher. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a lot of large spreads, and I also don't like divisional games. And there was quite a few of them as well. So I'm glad that neither of you took anything that falls into that category, and nor did I. And I'm going with Vegas at home, giving 3.5 to the Dolphins that I assume are Jacoby Brissett.
Maybe.
Right? Like I don't know.
I would assume so. I'd be shocked if Tua.
Yeah.
He did not look good leaving on Sunday. Let's just put it that way.
And look, Vegas hasn't looked great, but they've looked pretty good. So
It's odd you say that, because I agree with you. They haven't looked great, but they seem to be the hottest talk
right
when you flip the channels the last 2 days of, Las Vegas Raiders. What's Derek Carr doing? What Derek Carr's not doing is throwing interceptions. That's the difference, right? I think it comes down to that. He's not throwing the ball away. So
yeah, no, he's good.
Right.
Right now.
Right.
I'm not saying he's turned a corner and he's a great quarterback. I'm just saying right now he's playing very well. So which one are we going to lock in as our lock of the week?
I really like the Raiders over the Dolphins, with all the questions about what's going on with the Dolphins.
Fee, what do you think?
I can lock in with that.
All right, we're going to lock it in. I'm typing it onto our next week's show so we remember.
I don't really like it, but I'll roll with
it. You rather go Rams?
I would rather go Rams. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather just go with my pick, but
I think all three are good. You know what you should have learned from us is you put all three of the teams that we say together and you buy the points. If you buy yourself just a point or two,
you win every week. You win every week.
So what you do is you listen to all three of us, buy yourself a point or two, and call it a day. And you got a 3-team teaser.
You should just tease it. Yeah.
So that being said, back to last week, as we heard, Fee didn't do well in real life, but that's not any shortage of the good starts that he gave us last week. He told you, you wound up saying any double dip in the Tampa Bay and Atlanta game, right? And both those stacks were good. You could have done the Brady Evans Gronk stack, or just a Brady in one of them and be fine. And you could have done Matt Ryan and the Bucs Matt Ryan and Calvin Ridley and been great. And then you also gave us the Stafford and Cup against the Colts. I think that one paid off for you very well if you played that. You said Herbert and Mike Williams against Dallas. That was kind of average. It wasn't bad by any means, but if you went with that stack and had yourself a good little team, which you probably could have with Mike Williams being so cheap. CeeDee Lamb was a good pick. The only one you were high on Jalen Hurts, and he didn't really pan out, but I mean, that's a great week overall. So what do you got for us this week?
All right. So this week, we're going back to the Rams, and we're going to stick with Stafford, but I'm going with Robert Woods this go around. Tampa, Robert Woods, Cup has been getting all the love lately, and people are kind of forgetting about Robert Woods, and he hasn't looked bad. He just hasn't been getting the volume that Cooper Kupp has. Tampa's defense is very good against the run. The Rams are going to have to throw the ball. Darrell Henderson, I think, is hurt, so Stafford should be able to spread it around. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws the ball 50 times this game.
I was just about to say over under 50 throws.
Yeah.
Right.
And whether you go Kupp or Woods, Woods is the cheaper. He's the more value. I think Woods gets it done this week against Tampa Bay, whether it's garbage time or during the game, because the Rams are going to have to throw the ball a lot. So I'm going the Stafford Woods stack against Tampa.
He may even get some rushes with Henderson out, because that's Robert Woods played that game. He might get a couple of those little
valid.
Yeah. So I also like Daniel Jones and Sterling Shepard this week against Atlanta. I'm not opposed to Kenny Golladay. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Galladay was screaming at Jason Garrett on the sidelines there last week. I think that the Giants can throw the ball against Atlanta because I don't know if they're going to be able to run it
Fee,
I think
at
we
all,
can-
ever.
you
I
can
think
throw
we
the
can
ball.
throw the ball against
Yes,
Atlanta.
all three of us could throw the ball against Atlanta.
Right. So, and
Maybe.
Daniel Jones looks good, especially for fantasy. Okay. And so I wouldn't be opposed to throwing a Galladay or a Sterling Shepard in there with Daniel Jones as a stack. And then I also like on the other side, Matt Ryan, and I really like Kyle Pitts this week. The Giants have historically not been able to cover the tight end. And the Giants defense has been decent, but not necessarily against the tight end or running backs or against the pass. And I think that Atlanta's going to have to throw the ball against the Giants. And I think the Giants secondary is pretty good, but I think Kyle Pitts will be able to get open against whether it's linebackers or safeties. And I think this might be Kyle Pitts' coming out party. So I got the Ryan Pitts stack going on the opposite side of the Giants Atlanta game. And if you really wanted to, you could game stack it and go with all the Giants and all the Falcons guys.
Yeah.
And just see where you end up. And then a couple other value plays I got for you. I really like J.D. McKissick at 5,300 this week against the Bills. It's proven that Washington, when they're behind or in a tight game or in a 2-minute drill or offense, McKissick is going to be the guy that's out there. He did it against the Giants. He was out there a ton. Gibson gets the ball early on in the game. But if they're down, which I expect them to be against Buffalo, McKissick is going to be out there, and he's going to get a lot of volume in it. At 5,300, I think it's a sneaky play. I also like Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week against the Chargers. I know that the Chargers have a very good defense, but I read a stat this week that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is one of 4 running backs who's been out on the offensive side of the ball for offensive snaps over 85% of the time. And there's only 4 running backs in the NFL, in the entire NFL, and he's one of them. So He's obviously going to be out there. And if the Chargers defense is good, they're going to have to utilize Edwards-Helaire coming out of the backfield, whether it's running the ball or screen passes or whatever. A couple other guys I like Tyson Williams, I think it is on the Ravens.
Yep.
He's at 6,400 going against Detroit's hapless defense. And I really like Melvin Gordon this week going against the Jets. He's down at 6,000. Pretty cheap guys considering they're going against some bad defenses. I expect their offense, their teams to be up in this game, so they should be running the ball a whole lot.
Yeah, those are good ones. I like them all. Yeah, I really like stacking that Giants-Falcons game. I think there'll be a lot of juicy fantasy points in that one. So that brings us to weekly league starts and sits. Last week, we told you we're going to hold ourselves accountable. Last week, pretty much all 4 of our starts hit. We did say, to be specific, we said both Browns running backs would be good. Kareem Hunt, not so much, but Nick Chubb did, right? Nick Chubb got in the end zone, had a nice run, got you points. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski were our quarterback start and tight end start respectively, and they pretty much locked up everything by the end of the first quarter. We had the right pick. And then Calvin Ridley, as we said, caught that touchdown at the end of the game, had 70 yards, 6 receptions. So he definitely put up good points, especially if it was a PPR league. So let's look at this week's starts and sits. And I'm just going to start real quick with my quarterback start of the week because it goes along with what Fee was just saying. And I think if you have Daniel Jones on your roster, this is the week to start him. The Falcons can't stop anybody on offense. And, I like Shepard. I like Slayton. He had Galladay, he has receivers and he could have a lot of fun this week and have a week, like a coming out party for him, like you said. And for Pitts, I think it could be his 2021 coming out party, and I just think he has a big week. Dunton, to you.
I like everything you just said. It's interesting. You're not going to pick him a lot, but this is definitely a week you're going to think about it.
Right.
So interesting. I'm going with Russell Wilson this week. They're playing the Vikings, and if we've learned anything in the first 2 weeks of football season, is that the Vikings and the Seahawks have played in 2 shootouts
Yeah.
already.
They give up
So
massive
why
amounts
not
of
go for
points.
3 when they're going against each other? I'm hoping selfishly that this week is whatchamacallit, DK Metcalf's week as the wide receiver in Seattle, because clearly Russell Wilson has decided that TJ Lockett is going to be the MVP of the league. So anyway, but yeah, I'm going with Russell Wilson against the Vikings. I just think the Vikings defense has not stopped anybody, so I don't think they stop the Seahawks. And the Seahawks we've talked about are a team that will not be good come week 9 and 10 and later on. They're an early on in the season team. So take Russell Wilson there.
I do want to throw out there, because you said TJ Lockett, and we say that jokingly because I called him that so much earlier. Because last week someone said, his name's Tyler Lockett, and I said, yeah. And in last season, I always called him that because of TJ Duckett and TJ
Right.
Lockett, and I combined their names into one, so we just stick with it. But we are aware that he's Tyler Lockett because
Tyler Lockett
he was my
of the
start
Rams,
week
of the
last week.
Seahawks. Sorry,
Yes.
Tyler Lockett of the Seahawks. Yes.
So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. And that brings us to Fee, your start at quarterback this week.
Yeah, and I already talked about him in the Fanduel segment, but I really like Stafford this week going against Tampa. Tampa's defense, against the run, you're going to have to throw the ball. And, like we said, the over under on Stafford throwing the ball is going to be 50 times this game. And with that kind of volume and the type of weapons that the Rams have and the injuries that they have in the backfield, there's going to be a lot of throwing, and Stafford should be a big part of that.
And the injuries the Bucs have in the secondary.
Correct.
I'm good with Stafford here. I think.
Yeah, me too.
Danny Dimes is obviously high risk, high reward. Do we want to put our seal of approval on it? I don't know, but
no, I think Stafford has 350 plus yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, you can almost lock that in right now.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Stafford as our start of the week. That brings us to running back. Dunton, we'll start with you.
I'm going with David Montgomery versus the Browns. I just think that a lot of questions going on over there, and I think sometimes it's fun to hand it off to a steady running back, and I think this is a week that we're going to see that a lot. So I'm going with David Montgomery.
Sure. Fee, how about you?
Yeah, and there's a theme here. A lot of my starts are gonna match up with a lot of my FanDuel guys, but I'm going with Tyson Williams this week against Detroit. Detroit real bad against everything, really. But I think the Ravens will control this game, and they're gonna try and get the ball out of Lamar's hands as much as possible and into the hands of their running backs. And I think Tyson Williams benefits from that greatly.
Yeah. I'm going to go with D2 legend Austin Eckler. The Chiefs have allowed the most rushing touchdowns this year. I could see the Chargers trying to slow down the game and get the run game going. They really haven't done that yet this year, but if you want to beat the Chiefs, you certainly don't want the ball in their hands. And that could get Eckler in the end zone. And they've let up quite a bit of receiving yards to the running back as well. Not a ton, but I just think he's in a good position this week. I don't know that the Chargers are going to pull off some upset of the Chiefs, but I do think Eckler's going to have a good game. So out of those 3, who's our lock of the week? I mean, I feel like you got to give the edge to anyone playing the Lions right now, right?
I do, yeah. Here's my only knockdown of the Tyson Williams pick is Lamar Jackson taking some of the rushing yards,
and
right?
Touchdowns, yeah.
But I mean, is he going to flip into the end zone, or is he going to hand it off?
Lamar's going to get his, and he may vulture most of the touchdowns that they end up scoring.
Right.
So it's kind of a tough call, but if you think that Tyson can get in the end zone at least one time, whether it's on the ground or
right, one time, and he gets 60 something yards, you're at 12 points right there.
Exactly.
Lock it in.
Okay, he's locked in. That moves us to wide receiver, and Fee, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I really like Cortland Sutton this week. He's been really, really good. He was really good last week with Judy out now. And I think he's kind of cementing himself as the number 1 guy in Denver. I mentioned that the Jets are bad and that they're going to run the ball, but they're also going to throw it. And Sutton, I feel like, is going to get his, especially against the Jets.
Yeah. Dutton.
I'm going with CeeDee Lamb because there's so many questions surrounding Amari Cooper, and you're not going to know what's going on with Amari Cooper until all the Sunday games have finished.
Right.
It's a very risky start if you're going to stick to Amari Cooper in your lineup. But that being said, the Cowboys offense is ready to click, right? It's there. I mean, they hicked up against the Chargers, but the Chargers D is good. We talked about it, right? They still won the game. And I think without Amari Cooper, whether he plays or not, I don't think he's full steam. So CeeDee Lamb's going to become your number one target. So go with CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I can be on board with that. I like all three of our picks actually. And I'm going to go with a sneaky one here. I've kind
like
of
this one.
Mine are
I
all
like it.
kind of sneaky ones, but I'm gonna. If you have Marvin Jones on your roster this week, I think it's a good week to start him. The Cardinals showed that they could get themselves into a shootout. That's who the Jaguars are playing, and Trevor Lawrence is playing like a rookie quarterback, right? But that doesn't mean he's not throwing touchdowns. And Marvin Jones it looks like his top target. He
Laviska and Laviska Chenault's banged up. So.
Yeah. It sounds like they're saying he's day to day. So hopefully that means Chenault's going to play. But I still don't think that lessens the value of Marvin Jones. And I think this game is going to be a shootout, and I think he's a good sneaky play. But he's high risk, high reward. I don't know that I would put our show's stamp of approval on it, but I do want to go on record of saying that I like CeeDee Lamb.
I really like CeeDee Lamb too.
And I'll even touch. The spoiler alert: Koopa Doop is my sit. I'll explain more later, but that's because I do like Lamb. So I'm good locking in Lamb as our start of the week at wide receiver.
Yep.
And that moves us to tight end. And you know what? I'm going to start it off because I'm not betting against this guy anymore. We never did.
Again.
I still can't believe we did it in the first week, but I'm taking touchdown TJ, man. The Hockenson against the Ravens. The Ravens have let up touchdowns to the tight end. They're not that Ravens defense of old, right? There's being points scored against them. And Goff is targeted in on Hockenson. He's seen a ton of volume, and I feel like he even looks like Trimmer, like he looks more receiver-ish.
He looks faster too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he looks like a wide receiver this year, and he looks great. And I just think we got to take him. Dutton.
I mean, I don't have to talk about mine because I wanted to pick him. You already had him in there, but my other option was Mark Andrews because I don't think the Lions can stop a tight end like the Ravens can stop a tight end.
Right. So. You know, if the Giants had a legitimate tight end, that's the answer here because the Falcons haven't stopped a tight end since like 2016.
Right.
But they don't. So we had to dig a little deeper. And Fee.
Yeah. So my guy is Kyle Pitts this week. Every team moves the ball against the Giants. You know, they just move the ball. They just give up tons of yards. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a big part of that this week with Matt Ryan.
And Logan Thomas he didn't have a lot of yards, but he had like 7 targets and 5 catches, right? So Pitts is a lot more athletic. He gets those 5 catches. He could turn that into 2 touchdowns and 80 yards, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I think all 3 of these guys should start. I think you guys make great picks. So who do you want to lock in there?
It's hard not to lock in TJ Hockenson.
Yeah, so it sounds like both of you had him originally, so we might as well lock in TJ.
Touchdown TJ.
Right. But Kyle Pitts, you're getting an asterisk this week because you were definitely a favorite from the show. So
yeah, I think all 3 of these guys are starters. I like all the picks that we made up there in the starts, to be perfectly honest with you. I think you guys did a great job this week.
Well, thank you, sir. I believe you did too.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, right. Now we're all and one of them is getting hurt, just so everybody knows.
Right.
So everybody knows.
Yeah, last week was down to 1. It went from 4 to 1. Right. We only Jarvis Landry got hurt.
Yeah, only Jarvis Landry, who, oh, by the way, is on my fantasy team.
Yeah. I like Jarvis. He's definitely a show favorite. We've talked about him several times. But that means we're moving on to the sits, and we went 3 for 4 in our sits. We told you to sit Carson Wentz. We told you to sit James Robinson. We did tell you to sit DJ Moore. But on the counter side, I think we can tell you now, I think he's a week-to-week start. I don't think it's a question that you sit him anymore, right?
No.
He
Yeah.
has earned us the right to start every week. And then Mike Josecki, who, to Mike Josecki's credit, one Brissett got in there and there was a quarterback that sees the tight end. He did catch 3 passes for 41 yards, but that's still not helping you on a fantasy day. But, moving forward, at least watch him. If Brissett's under center, maybe he gets more involved in the game again, because it definitely looked like he did the second that Tua left. But he was still a sit last week. So that brings us to this week's sits. And I'm going to start with Jameis Winston. The Patriots defense, they haven't played the stiffest competition, mind you. They got the tee off on Zach Wilson, but they do lead the NFL in interceptions. And they've only allowed 1 touchdown, I believe, this year. So, Winston looked a lot more like Winston last week than he did.
The world is round again. Everything is back to normal.
Right. So I'm going to throw Jameis Winston as the sit of the week. Fee, over to you.
I'm going with Baker Mayfield with Jarvis Landry hurt and OBJ, who knows if he's coming back, which I think he probably isn't. I don't see him throwing the ball a whole lot. Chicago's defense is okay. They still got Khalil Mack. They still got those edge rushers. I just don't see Baker having a big day. He's my sit of the week this week.
I like it. Dutton.
I'm going with Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers because historically Aaron Rodgers does not play well against the 49ers. He's averaging under 300 yards a game and just around 2.2 touchdowns a game against the 49ers, which are not terrible stats, but they're not Aaron Rodgers 5 touchdown stats either, right?
For sure.
I don't know what's up with the Packers. I don't know what to believe anymore with that team, right? Like, are they the team that we saw the first game and the first half, or are they the team we saw the second half last night? And they're going into a hostile environment against the 49ers, and I just don't think Aaron Rodgers has an all-worldly game. So I'm sitting Aaron Rodgers this week.
Yeah. Well, I know that he's always had trouble. Packers 49ers is always a fun one. But yeah, his numbers seem down. Who's our lock of the week?
Jameis.
Jameis.
Gotta be Jameis.
Jameis. It's gotta be.
I didn't even finish the sentence. We'll lock it in. JW. So he's locked in. That takes us to running back. Fee, we'll start with you, Fee.
So I'm sitting DeAndre Swift this week. He's been splitting carries with Jamal Williams. While he's looked efficient, Baltimore's defense is real good. I know they gave up a ton of points against Kansas City, but that was Kansas City. And we're not going to mistake Detroit for Kansas City. So my sit of the week is DeAndre Swift against Baltimore.
Fair enough. Dutton.
I'm sitting Edwards Hilaire against the Chargers. Chargers defense is tough against the run, and I think the leash is getting kind of short with the second-year running back in Kansas City after the fumble the other night that potentially cost them the game, right? Hasn't produced fantasy-wise. We've talked about it before. He was not the breakout performer everyone thought he was going to be last year for the first-round pick, and he's not wowing anybody this year. So I think there's a chance that somebody else gets a lot of the touches later on in the game against the Chargers on Sunday. So be careful of that. I'm sitting Edwards Hilaire.
I was on the fence with him. The thing, what Fee said about the volume earlier, 80% of the time on the field, is Williams or McKinnon the guy that's gonna
that's the problem.
Like when Ronald Jones fumbles, it's LeGarrette Blount.
Leonard Fournette.
I always call him. Was LeGarrette Blount on the Buccaneers?
He was. Yeah.
So when Ronald Jones fumbles, it's not Leonard Fournette coming in, right? It's Williams or McKinnon, and I just don't think those are the answers. And I think that I kind of agree with you. I don't think that he's going to put up the numbers, but I don't know that he's going to be replaced, right? I don't know that.
Yeah, I know, and it was hard for me to pick this one, but it's a good conversation to have, so that's why I put it out there.
I went back and forth on him quite a bit, but I wound up going with Joe Mixon. The Steelers have allowed 114 yards rushing this year. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown this year. Joe Mixon's had a good game. Well, let's face it, no running back has had the wow me game except for Derrick Henry last week.
And Aaron Jones last night.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Aaron Jones was receiving. It wasn't even rushing.
Right. But Derrick Henry really has had the only wow game. Joe Mixon hasn't had that wow game. So I like to sit Joe Mixon against the Steelers. And that opens it up more for a fantasy football breakdown favorite, T. Higgins. I love T. So who do we want to lock in?
Ooh, I don't know. This is a tough one.
This is a tough one. I like all three of our picks. So
I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift because I think there's going to be a lot more Jamal Williams action coming out of Detroit sooner than later.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility as well. I kind of agree with that. I'm good with Swift if we want to do that. We good?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lock it in. Wide receiver, I'll start because I told you I wanted to touch on it. The Eagles have been very good against the pass, right? They obviously Matt Ryan still has it, right? He threw. We know the Bucks. We've talked about the Bucks secondary being beat up, but Ryan still chucked it for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns before he went all Matt Schaub to end the game and started throwing to the other team, right? So the Eagles shut him down completely. The Eagles, the 49ers only scored 17 points against them. They did nothing. I think the Eagles secondary is good. I think their defense is good enough. I don't think there's a way to stop CeeDee Lamb, but I do think there's a way to stop Amari Cooper, even the Cooper Dupe, even if especially if he's banged up a little bit. So I'm going to say I agree with Dutton's start of CeeDee Lamb, but I suggest you sit Cooper Dupe. Faith.
Yeah, so I was having trouble coming up with a sit this week. So I just decided to go with Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is the Browns' #1 receiver, it seems like, against the Bears this week.
Wow. Wow. You dug deep on that, Faith.
Yeah. So I would suggest, even though he's their #1 receiver, Baker was my sit. I suggest
probably a good idea if we didn't even know
suggest you sit their #1 receiver as well.
I feel like he's a guy, like Juwan Johnson and the Saints tight end that caught 2 touchdowns in week 1. He had 3 catches for 29 yards with those 2 touchdowns, though. If you saw that, you knew to stay away from him. But, this guy, DPJ as well, #1 receiver. He's going to be a hot pickup. The teams are going to pick him up. And I just think you steer clear. I agree with you on that one. And then Dutton.
Yeah.
Cover your ears, Fee.
He'll probably like it. I don't know. You don't know what he's up to these days.
Was I 1 week off with this?
You might be 1 week off. I think I sit Terry McLaurin this week. He's coming off a big week against the Giants. The Bills defense, look, as bad as the Dolphins are, to shut out an NFL team is pretty impressive, right? Especially in their own stadium. So Bills defense is formidable. I think their secondary is really good. I think Terry McLaurin, he gets in the end zone this week, but it's a quiet 12 to 13 points. It's not a huge week, and I think you're expecting more out of him.
So I know he's your sit of the week. Do I sit him on my team?
Well, I don't know what you do because you sat him last week when everyone else in the world was starting him. So.
Oh, God.
I like your Cooper one, and I'll tell you why. I don't like guys who are injured that are playing on Monday night.
Yeah, it's a dangerous play. That's another. Sorry, I forgot to throw that in there. You're exactly right. That's another reason I wanted to mention is that it's scary to wait, and the chances are, everyone obviously CeeDee Lamb is rostered. I'm sure the other guys on the Cowboys are rostered too. So you won't be able to pick that guy up and hold on to him.
Right.
On a second flip.
Right. Sit Coop.
Yeah, I'd sit Cooper for sure.
Okay, so Cooper Dupe it is. That moves us to tight end. Dutton, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm sitting Tyler Higbee, and I think he's the only person in Los Angeles who's not happy with their new quarterback because clearly Matthew Stafford does not like the tight end anymore because he has all his other new weapons. So he's just not getting looks. I mean, he's not even getting balls thrown his way. I mean, I think he's had 4 targets maybe the last 2 weeks, nothing compared to all the other guys. So I am sitting Tyler Higbee this week until I see some love from Matthew Stafford for Mr. Higbee.
Fee.
I'm going with Jonnu Smith. He has not done anything yet this year. It seems like the Patriots don't want to throw the ball to the tight end for some reason, right after they paid two of them big money in free agency. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But then again, Bill Belichick never really did. But he's always won, so you gotta go with him. But the Patriots don't seem to be throwing the ball to the tight end. Johnny's done nothing. Yeah, I'm sitting Johnny Smith.
I'm gonna sit Jack Doyle on the Colts. He really hasn't done much as it is. With all the question marks at quarterback right now, it's also not going to help his cause. Also, just they are playing the Tennessee Titans. Do you know how many passing yards the Titans have allowed to the tight end this year?
0.
3.
Wow.
1 catch for 3 yards.
Was it Tyler Higbee? Because he had 1 target last week.
Maybe. Really, I'm kind of on board with all 3 of these. I kind of would lean towards Jonnu, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Higbee as well. I mean, I really think you could sit all 3 of these guys. Yeah.
Of the 3, I think Higbee has the best chance of having the best week because of how many points could be scored in that game. I mean, the Bucs are averaging that's 30 points a game, right?
Yeah,
Rams are going to score at least 30. So yeah,
and they're good, and you know they're going to throw it. So
right. Eventually, Tyler Higbee might be open and maybe waving his hands like, "Hey, Matthew Stafford, I'm on this team. Throw it to me."
Yeah. So I'm good with locking in Jonnu.
Jonnu it is.
Jonnu. Okay, so before we go back and review everything, any crazy waiver wire picks you guys want to throw out there that people may be looking at this week, or that you said it. You said to be weary of Elijah Mitchell, Fee, and he was your sit of the week, and he was the big waiver wire pickup, and he really didn't show up.
Yep. So I mean, it's not crazy because I think he is the number 1 waiver wire pick this week. But Rondale Moore, the receiver for the Cardinals, is going to be a very popular waiver pickup. And he, as he should be, he's been, outstanding, and Kyler's been throwing him the ball, and he's been getting volume even with DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green there. I actually think Rondale Moore is probably the number 2 receiver ahead of AJ Green there.
I would agree with that.
But I think he's the popular pickup. It's not a crazy pickup. I think he's going to be the number 1 guy this week. So I think, if you're in need of a receiver, I think he's your guy.
Marvin Jones, Wayne. I mean, if Marvin Jones is out there, I think he's a good waiver wire pickup. You said it. Like, he seems to be a Trevor Lawrence favorite. So
yeah. And I think in 12 teams league he's rostered. I think in 10-team leagues you definitely have a shot at him.
Right. Right.
I think that's a good one. What about Tony Pollard? Is he going to be overreaction central this week, or is he worth the pickup?
I think he's worth the pickup. I think
you just store him on your bench and hope that you play him at the right week.
If for nothing else, he's the top handcuff in the entire league.
Yeah.
Right. So, if something were to happen to Zeke, he'd be the number 1 guy, and he's obviously proven that he can get it done.
Do you think that was just we have figured out how to move the ball against the Chargers, and it's with Tony Pollard and nothing else, and that the ship rights itself next week? Or is it we're not moving the ball, put Tony in and let's see what happens, and all of a sudden we have a running back controversy in Dallas?
Yeah.
So potentially it could be I don't think it could be that they have a running back controversy. You mentioned it earlier that the Chargers are very good against the run. And so obviously Zeke couldn't run, didn't get it going last week. He still was okay, not nearly as good as Pollard was, but they had him coming out of the backfield and catching passes. And they played Tampa week 1.
Right.
So obviously the run game was kind of out of the question. It probably wasn't even part of the game plan. So now you have the first 2 weeks of the season going against 2 very good run defenses, and all of a sudden people are up in arms about Ezekiel Elliott being not great. And like, he doesn't look good. They're not running the ball. Like, what's going on?
Right.
So you could have a slight overreaction, but I also think that Tony Pollard is going to be a big part of that Dallas Cowboy offense going forward. It may not be a 50-50 split, but when the Cowboys are in trouble, they're going to go to him when they're trying to move the ball quickly.
He's definitely a proven third down back now, right?
Sure.
100%. Like change of pace, which helps Zeke in the long run because we've talked about extra game in the season and,
yeah, look,
load management, the whole thing.
If you look at Dallas's schedule coming up the next, I think 6 to 8 weeks, even all the way through almost like week 9 or week 10, their running schedule is pretty soft.
Right.
So you may end up seeing Zeke start to kind of pick it up in the next.
He's gonna be eating
weeks.
A lot, is what you're telling
me. And who knows? I mean, like now everyone that was overreacting to him not getting the ball and not getting the touches and not getting the yards in the first 2 weeks of the season, might be surprised. I don't know about pleasantly, but they might be surprised that Ezekiel Elliott starts to pick up his game, and because the Cowboys might be ahead in games and they start to run the ball more often. Okay, so I think you might be surprised about Zeke getting more touches, more volume, and more yards going forward.
What about Zach Pascal? Is this the week that people finally pick him up and then they don't know what the heck's going on at quarterback? Right,
probably
a guy that has a touchdown every week of the season. At some point, you got to pick him up, right? Someone's
right.
Most likely, but I think it's probably fool's gold.
Yeah. I think I'm with you, especially if it's Jacob Eason back there.
Right.
What's going to happen? But I think those are going to be some of the bigger names that are hit up on the waiver wire this week. So just to review before we let you go this evening, our locks of the week. I took Vegas giving 3.5. Dunton told you Rams +1, and Fee said Tennessee -5.5. We locked it in with Vegas, baby. Vegas. Fee gave us some nice stacks of the week in Stafford and Woods. This is a good week to stack the Giants, Danny Dimes and Sterling Sharp. He likes the Ryan
Sterling Sharp.
Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Sharp.
That's because I wrote Sterling Shep.
I know. I got you. We're good.
Sterling Sharp should come back, though. I'd love to see what he could do.
That would be great.
Great.
Yeah, he was good for a long time.
Yep.
He also like Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts. Some individual plays you liked were McKissick, Edwards-Helaire, Tyson Williams, and Melvin Gordon, just because of their value. They were value plays. Our starts of the week, the consensus fantasy football breakdown starts of the week were Stafford, Williams, Lamb, and touchdown TJ. The consensus fantasy football breakdown sits of the week were Winston, DeAndre Swift, Coop, a dupe, and Jonnu Smith. So there you go. That's it. We went over some of our waiver wire.
Hey, by the way, it's week 3, and you know who's starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears?
Justin Fields.
Just like I said it would be.
As predicted in July by Mike Dutton. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another week. Remember to follow us on YouTube and everywhere else you can listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week to show you a perfect slate of selections we made. Till then, good luck.